So we have a volatile, it's called. So I don't know if anyone's old enough to remember Peanuts. So I think there was a little character called Linus, and he had this little kind of dusty cloud around him all the time when he walked around. We basically have that in chemicals.
Oh my goodness.
So we have thousands of volatiles that are our little clouds. And when we are proximal to each other, we trade them.
Oh my goodness. So they...
Yeah. So I'm absorbing yours, you're absorbing mine, I'm sending them to you.
Welcome to Hacking Health. This podcast is for future-focused health experts, thought leaders and change makers who are interested in making health accessible for everyone, because together we can get to the future faster. One of our most popular guests is back. Dr. Fiona Kerr is the founder of the NeuroTech Institute and FocusNTI Consulting, combining qualifications in systems engineering, cognitive science and psychology and anthropology. With nearly 40 years in the industry, she is globally recognised for her work on the cognitive science of both human to human and human to technology interaction and how this informs practice. This includes work with medical practitioners, technology companies, governments and policy makers on creating sustainable human-centric healthcare and ageing solutions. Other areas include robotic bionics, AI, design and ethics, and defence, with ministerial advisory roles in Australia in health and Finland in AI. Dr. Kerr holds honorary academic positions with SAHMRI and the University of Adelaide. What happens when we talk face-to-face or proximal to each other?
So lots happens. So we're built, I often describe us as electrochemical bags for connecting. And we have all sorts, thousands actually, of different ways of taking in information from someone when they're proximal to us, when they're sharing the same space, and also of giving out information. So health-wise, there's a good little story that sometimes I tell. So you're coming in to have an operation, and we'll go on with that story later because it gets more and more interesting. But even at the beginning, if you come in and I'm looking at you face to face, and we've got eye contact, and then I might actually pick up your hand to take your pulse. And so what I've done straight away is when I've looked at you eye to eye, then we've started off all kinds of chemical changes and all kinds of electrical changes. So mirror neurons, there's a subset of mirror neurons that only registers sort of smiles and laughter. There's things called von Economo neurons, which is the trust neuron. They start off in about 1/6 of a second. So there's lots and lots of different activity that begins, and we start creating oxytocin and dopamine, serotonin, all kinds of chemicals that begin that kind of human connection. And when I've touched your hand, touch, the skin has things called C fibers. We have A fibers and C fibers. So A fibers are very fast. If you pick up a hot pot, it's the A fiber that says put it down, but it's the C fiber that then, if you actually wait, if you think about it, you will realize that you don't feel the pain for a lag time. And that's the C fibers. So they're not myelinated, they're very slow, but they pick up lots and lots of information and they go through emotional pathways. So when you touch C fibers with a gentle touch, you set off these emotional pathways and you get this cascade of chemicals from each other. So just by doing that, we've started to connect. Whereas if I didn't look at you and I was looking at my iPad and I put that little thing on your finger to take your...
Or what if I got like a check-in screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
And
that doesn't do it either.
Back to you. Yeah.
So we haven't had sustained, retinal alignment. We haven't had touch. So just in that little few seconds or that first minute, it makes a difference. So we are really very well attuned to pay attention to each other, to connect. So eye gaze does a bunch of things. So we've talked about the fact that it sets off all sorts of electrochemical activity, and it starts to straight away entrain particular parts of our brains. And I know that not everyone gets the really positive kind of impacts because of sometimes medical reasons. So you'll find that some people who are autistic don't look at you as much. Once they know you, they do, because they learn to buffer. So what's happening with autism when you look at someone, especially someone new, is it's not that they're not empathic, it's that they're very empathic. So it's like taking in a fire hose of information from the other person. And what they don't do very well is buffer that. So they're taking in so much of that that they actually look away to break the contact. But once they know you, then, you know, it settles down a lot. So it doesn't make much difference.
Yeah.
So eye contact is very powerful. It's a very kind of engaging way that we interact. So that's one. The second is, I guess we talked about touch. So touch changes all kinds of things. That cascade of chemicals, that can change your immune system. It increases all kinds of things in your body. So there's beautiful work.
So even with strangers?
Yes. So even with strangers, if it's warm, what's called affiliative touch, you know, and it's appropriate. So
like
if it gives you a
hands.
positive... That's exactly right. So what we do in our culture is we have a culturally acceptable way of shaking hands. And as soon as you shake the hand of another person, start off the C fibre attenuation, and you start changing the chemical composition, and you actually also start aligning some of those different chemicals. So it's got a very interesting impact. If you hug someone, then that's more. And of course, if we hug people we know. In fact, if you hug someone that you'd have to very much know them for about 2 minutes, you get this massive dopamine letdown rush.
Well, I've noticed, I don't know if this is going to sound crazy to you, but like I can touch my husband or my kids and I can feel that. But I haven't noticed it with anyone else.
Yes. Well, what about your parents or people that you know well?
I haven't noticed so much, but maybe it's just like I'm just more aware that it happens with them. So I'm going to have to do experiments on myself with other people.
You're going to have to go and give your mum or your dad a long cuddle. But we notice things like, you know, when your child's upset or your partner's upset or you're upset, if you just hold each other or touch, the level of electrochemical activity that starts off is often much more effective than trying to use words, because words are so loaded. But yeah, the touch has a huge impact. And in fact, there was lovely work on all sorts of massage. So I've done a big massage map. So I did a paper with the medical group on the neurophysiological impact of touch and eye gaze on healing and trust, the therapeutic relationship. And they both have a massive impact. So it changes an awful lot in your body. And it's one of those things that is very underestimated. But massage, when you map massage, there's all kinds of pressures of massage, depends on who's doing it, what time of day, what for. But there's really good data around things like, so one very interesting example is women who were getting a massage before they had cancer, and it was before they had radiotherapy. And the theory was, okay, so let's see if this massage, you know, increases NK killer cells and helps sort of them get better. And they measured, and they weren't increasing, and they said, oh, it doesn't work. But then it was, well, hang on. What we've actually got is the chemical changes in the body help those NK killer cells to be more robust. So although you weren't getting more, they weren't dying as much in radiotherapy. So you physiologically strengthen the person going into something like that. So yeah, touch is massively important. Yeah, sorry. So again, we're just this beautiful sort of bunch of cells and, you know, electrical activity. So the next thing is called dynamic resonance. So when we're in the same space, so everything oscillates and synchronizes, and when people are together, then we are picking up that dynamic resonance from other people, and we entrain with each other. So it's why we do it with voice. So when you're talking to someone, we tend to come down to the same volume. We come down to the emotional level that's the same. If you walk with someone, you tend to walk in step. That's why we love dancing, we love rocking a baby.
Yes.
So all of those things, and it's because we're in training and we're in resonance. And again, that has a lot of impact on what's happening to you, especially sort of physiologically. And we can change levels of cortisol, we can change a bunch of things. Not as strongly as with touch. Touch is really fast. I mean, kangaroo care in touch, when you actually take a baby for half an hour, you equilibrate cortisol, you do all kinds of things in that way. So that dynamic resonance is really tuning us in to each other as well. So that's another very powerful thing that we do in the same place.
Yes.
Then there's voice. So voice for years has been studied in terms of brain-to-brain coupling. So it's an extremely strong way of actually, if we both had caps on and we were talking to each other and you put EEG caps or FNERS caps on us, we could actually watch the brain, various parts of our brain talking to each other and starting to entrain. And it changes a number of things that are happening in your brain. So if you're talking to someone who you know or who has, again, an affiliative voice, then your level of connectivity to them, your level of being connected and supported goes up. It's why we kind of grab the phone, when we really want to talk to someone about something. It's also why you can be holding it together if you're upset until, say, you get your partner on the line. And then that's when you'll burst into tears. And it's because lots of things then connect. The emotional pathways, go bang and off you go. But voice has a really interesting power in terms of it can help you change the way you make decisions and the way you feel. So if you have people talking to you that are positive, and again, that you have, especially that you have a relationship with, then the kinds of waves in your brain alter. So we get more theta, gamma, and delta waves, and they have a number of impacts. They change how calm you are about things. They will change your capacity to listen and take information in. They also will make you more kind of patient and long lens in what you will take in. So they change decision-making pathways and they change the way that you feel. So if you want to get to a stage where you want really good information, then what I've found in looking at brain-computer interfaces, working with robots, that kind of thing, is you get to a certain stage of complexity with the problem, and usually what the human will do is disconnect from looking at all the really good data on a screen, and they'll pick up a radio or they'll talk to a person because it starts to change. That is a much different way that you can then problem solve. So we're very good when we talk to people. So it aligns in all different ways, and it lets you get to a different pocket, if you like, of information. And then there's chemicals. So we have a chemosphere. Everything has a chemosphere.
Okay.
So we have a volatilome, it's called. So I don't know if anyone's old enough to remember Peanuts. So I think there was a little character called Linus, and he had this little kind of dusty cloud around him all the time when he walked around. We basically have that in chemicals.
Oh my goodness.
So we have thousands of volatiles that are our little clouds. And when we are proximal to each other, we trade them.
Oh my goodness. So they...
Yeah. So I'm absorbing yours, you're absorbing mine, I'm sending them to you. Most of them is in our emotional sweat, which sounds revolting, but it's not.
Okay.
And it changes everything. It changes so many things. It changes. So it's why you can read a room, when you walk in. It's why sometimes it feels really good.
The vibe.
Yep, the vibe.
Real.
The vibe is your volatilome. And also you're starting, if you know people, you will immediately be starting to sync into brain synchrony as well. So we'll come to that. But this chemistry is incredible. It's also why, because a lot of them are, hormones and those kind of things, it's why, say, people living together will synchronize hormones or even working together. And actually men do it as well as women, just not as obviously, but they do too. It's why when you're holding that child, you will sync various chemicals. It's really powerful in terms of what happens. It's also why if you walk into a room and it's not going well, the hairs will stand up on the back of your neck. it also creates contagion. So it's one of the bases. I was listening to, I think, a Radio National program the other day, and they were going, but what is it when all these people are together in this concert? There's something else.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, yes, it's the chemical.
Yeah.
The latinone, because it's a really strong influence because we're absorbing massive amounts of information and we're also giving it out to other people. So we can read people so much more when we have this chemical exchange. And that's something that we know more and more about. We can read about 3,000 of them now, but I think the estimate is there's probably between 15 and 25,000.
It's really why you need to do like job interviews in person too, isn't it?
Totally.
Like,
all of this.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So that's, you can think about what doesn't go over a screen. You can't touch people over a screen. Your chemisphere doesn't work over a screen. The eye gaze, lots of the parts of the brain that turn on with direct eye gaze don't turn on over a screen because they're not stimulated in the same way.
Yes.
A voice, depending on the quality of the pickup,
yes,
there's just not the data.
No.
In fact, very often it's better to pick up a phone because the phone is often richer. But the other thing about the phone is you haven't got the distraction of a screen and you can concentrate on the voice. And so a lovely thing about voice is humans have learned to mask their feelings visually. We have not learnt to mask our emotions through voice. So if you actually listen to someone on the phone, you get a much better idea, not just of things like turn taking and those kind of things. You get a better idea of gauging how they feel, and they get a better idea of gauging how you feel. So having a difficult difficult conversation is usually better done on a phone than over a screen because the screen gives you lots and lots of conflicting information.
Inputs.
And there's all sorts of reasons why the phone is more accurate and more settling for both. And they can also read that you care about what you're talking about more. Face-to-face is better, but if you have to, then over a phone. The last thing is interbrain synchrony. So I love this. And when I started looking at this, of course, there was still so much, that's rubbish. And now it's not. So again, we get all of those things I talked about with eye gaze. So we get lots of the brain turning on in interbrain synchrony. And the more you know someone, the better, the less lag time your brains are between me sending electrical activity and your brain reading it. But it's still very fast. It's still, parts of a second. And when you really know people, then you get to the stage where you have what's called preemptive syncing.
So when you can finish each other's sentences.
Exactly, yes. So you just know each other. And so that's that, you can mind read, basically, off each other. And so there's parts of our brain that will tell us whether the person's lying. There's parts of our brain that will tell us, just how they're really feeling about something. We're hundreds of parts of your brain do this. And I'll send a picture. There's a lovely picture I often use talking about this, about two pilots as an example. And one's a new pilot, one's an older pilot. And also in health, this is done with interns and doctors. You can measure it with teachers and children. And what you see is if you cap them, and in some experiments they've put caps on the whole classroom or a whole group of interns, then what you see is all of this electrical activity going from one to another. There is different colours because you can tell who's sending, who's receiving. You can tell how fast it's going. You can tell how much it's being pulled. You can, there's all of this massive amounts of information that are not voice. And the other fascinating thing for me is if you're showing someone, not only are we super efficient in just that kind of brain Wi-Fi, but also if I'm physically showing you something, I might be making something, or I might be showing you how to, shoot an arrow, or how to do, an operational kind of pattern, then what we can see is that not only do you have brain-to-brain synchrony, but I will have brain-to-muscle synchrony as well. So part of my brain will be directly connecting with the part of your body that needs to do that. And that's why when you're actually trying to do something, if you've got someone right with you, physically showing you as well as telling you.
Like allied health person.
Yes.
Or nurse. Or
Yep. Or you're tutoring someone. Online you can't get that. But when you're with the person, then not only are they listening to you, but their body is hooked up to your body, and there's all kinds of information exchange. So interbrain synchrony is massively powerful, and it happens within a short space of time. If you trust the person, then you can, you read their mood, you read information that's coming in a different way. The more comfortable you are, the more information exchange. So one of the reasons for that, I'm probably leaping into one of the other questions.
Please, go for it.
So that's one of the reasons why when you're a practitioner and you're face-to-face talking with someone, and it's just as relevant for a bank manager seeing someone in person, but when you're a practitioner, one of the reasons that it's different than the online talk is that you get the oxytocin's higher. And so what oxytocin does is it does a bunch of things technically. And one of the things it does is it makes us more comfortable with disclosing information, because our fear, our stress in divulging information is lowered.
Okay.
So if I'm your patient, I will tell you more. And the other lovely thing is I can read whether or not you as a doctor or a nurse actually care about the answer. So if you're someone who has respectful empathy, if you actually care about your patient, my brain's reading that without you having to say it. And the other way, if you don't care, I'm also picking that up. But if you do, then we have a really strong connectivity. I will give you more information. You will pick up more information as well. So what that oxytocin does for the practitioner is it makes their radar sharper. So you will pick up more nuanced information. You will listen differently. You will ask different questions. So it actually gives you a much wider field of information on which to make a decision. So I work with clinical decision making with various groups. And it's a really interesting aspect of you get a different base for being able to make a decision. And that's why face-to-face is much better with things like ongoing problems or picking up patterns that you don't pick up when you see people, over a screen on checks. They're really good for critical things that are happening or things right at the time. But those kind of longer lens pattern things, you don't pick that up in the same way. So it's a really amazing kind of impact that it has.
It is amazing.
So what does it do? So it aligns and it synchronizes. When you're face-to-face, you get alignment in all kinds of ways, chemical, electrical. It starts to align your emotions and your feelings. It aligns your level of comfort with each other. And also it synchronizes various things. And when you have that synchrony, what you can start to do is you can pick up when people, say, haven't been doing what they should have, or when they need to change a habit. So one of the big things that's powerful about face-to-face, I do some work in Finland and was doing some work in New York. What was really interesting, there was a friend of mine in New York works with pre-diabetes, and he's the dean of one of the universities, but now he's in his 70s, got a private practice. And of course, there's all these people saying, use apps, do all these, get the technology out there, you'll make lots of money. And his wife's also an anthropologist, and she's gorgeous, and that's my first, that I'm also an anthropologist. So that whole thing about understanding how people connect. And he said, but I just know that when these people come in once a week to see me, to tell me whether they've stuck to their diet or what they're doing, they do it differently. He said, I have a much better success rate than many other people. And I'm sure it's because we still work face-to-face. And he's right. So in fact, COVID stopped one of the experiments for us, because what we were going to do was say, how often is it that you have to come in, and be face-to-face with either him or the nurse that's, helping you and taking all of your readings. And it is a fascinating thing. And then apps are very good at then scheduling and helping you remind you. But the thing that face-to-face does is, with that connection and that level of trust, it also increases that loyalty. So I don't want to disappoint you when I come back in. And the other thing is, I can't lie to you as easily.
Yes. Well, I found that, like, just with my own hairdressers and personal trainers, like the people who you see face to face, who touch you.
Yes.
In particular, it's hard to break away from.
Oh, well, hairdressers know everyone's secrets.
Well, that's also true.
Yes. So that's a basic grooming thing, and that's because as soon as you touch someone, and especially their head, their hair, they're relaxing, they're kind of giving in and trusting you, off go all those spindle and mirror neurons, off go all those lovely, oxytocin, serotonin, dopamines, and you'll tell them anything. So that face-to-face is powerful. And the work in Finland is about preventative health.
Yes.
And very often I get asked, well, how do we technologize this? And in the end, what they're trying to say is, how do we get the human out, because it would be cheaper?
Yeah.
The fact is, you can't in a lot of these cases, because what you end up with is the kind of electrochemical changes we've just been talking about are the sorts of changes that you need to break habits. So when you have a habit, it's a shortcut. And you might have bad habits in health. We know what we need to do to be healthy, and we still don't always do it. So instead, very often it's a case of, well, let's bring in the app. A habit is an actual physical spider web in your head, and it's a neural network that's been created, which means that it's a shortcut. Your brain doesn't have to think about it. It just clicks it on. It all fires up. It all happens, and it's automatic. You have to break that physically. And you have to change what's connected to what and actually have a new pattern, a new map, a new neural network. And the kinds of chemicals that help you to break that and change it and have the willpower to stick to doing something new until it becomes a habit are the kinds of chemical boosts we get from face-to-face interaction. So if you front load with humans, then you bring it up and support it with things like apps, for reminding you things, for giving you really good data and information, for scheduling stuff, for giving feedback or getting data back to your practitioner. There's so many wonderful ways you can use them. And there's lots and lots of ways now that they can give you excellent data on what's happening. They can keep an eye on what's going on. But it's a different thing.
Yes.
So doing that lovely combination is the thing that's really useful.
So what does the power of direct interaction mean for the future of healthcare?
Yes. That's the question we have to answer. So I guess I go out a bit with that and say, what do we want it to look like? When I'm dying or when I'm ill, what do I actually need? And we know that we need direct human interaction.
Yes.
So we started off talking about that direct eye gaze when you came in. So let's finish that. So the little story of retinal eye lock. So you've come in.
Yes.
I've looked at you.
Yes.
We've had that initial bond. So you'll go in now and you'll get your treatment.
Yes.
And I might come on shift with you, and so we'll see each other. And the lovely thing is, once we do that a little bit, your brain's starting to create this little mini-me of me and me with you. So you've got more going on as soon as you see me. More of your neural networks are firing when you see me. And then something happens and you get stressed. It's called allostasis. So either you're in pain or you're worried about something. So what we tend to do is firstly give you a drug to lower that kind of stress. And then we can give you a number of different things. We could even have something which technically will kind of try and sort of bring your stress down. If people are really worried, we can actually sort of medicinally just stop them. But instead, if I come in to you, then if I'm looking in your eyes, and especially if I sit on the bed and maybe I'll pat your hand, so we start the C fibre attenuation, we look at this whole thing to do with retinal eye lock, then within 5 minutes, I've changed the way that your amygdala is firing. I've lowered your cortisol. I've started through oxytocin to boost your immune system. So I've changed your electrochemical mix. You're starting to hope is starting to come up. Okay, this is not so bad because I'm talking to you.
Yes.
And that changes all sorts of things. That changes the level of pro-inflammatory cytokines. It changes various chemical mixes in your body, and it starts to, and also changes something called the HPA axis, which is all of the nervous, it's the control room for the nervous system. You know, your sympathetic, parasympathetic, autonomic, they all start to calm down. And that's 5 minutes with a person that you know and trust. And the other lovely thing is lots of those chemicals are reciprocal. So I'm getting them as well. So it's why it's really nice to help people, because you get a boost in all these beautiful chemicals. And so it's actually a win-win-win. It's really cost effective because you get better faster. So the hospital has a bed. It's not had to go through drugs or various kind of fancy ways of restraint. I get this lovely boost. I've also got the agency to sit with you for 5 minutes because I've been able to make that decision.
Yes.
So I'll stay in my job and you won't get turnover.
Yeah.
There's just all sorts of reasons, you know, to do that. So what we need to do going forward is understand the power of that direct proximal kind of interaction and really make decisions on, you know, what do we want care to look like and what do we want quality health interaction to look like, and also what do we want a quality death to look like. So there's something called the end of life robot. It's at the moment it's not in production, but the initial first one just looks basically like a screen with an ironing board, and the theory was that it would sort of go on your arm and just pat you and say there.
Oh.
There's no one around you.
No
human. So I can remember having quite an argument with a really good friend of mine on a TV set about. He was saying, "But isn't it better than nothing?" No, it's not, because not only does that make you feel even more lonely,
or angry.
Yes, but what does it say about the choice we've made as a society?
Yes,
that's a better choice.
Yeah.
So we have to be very mindful. We have to make active choices about really understanding the power of the human, connection, and then using I know we've talked about it before, so using that whole awesome sort of technology to kind of support and enable and do all kinds of amazing things we can't do. But we can do lots of amazing things. There's an incredible story in the US. It shows, and it might sound sad, but it just shows you sometimes thinking that way, thinking about quality of life and quality of death is different than we think. So it's a city that's got a homeless shelter, and what happens in that homeless shelter is people who are used to living on the streets and don't want to be interfered with as they get sick, when they are going to die, they come in to that homeless shelter and they don't want you to interfere. They just want to sit and be there with other people when they die. And it's because, we are with this connection kind of, and we're built
wired
to connect.
For it.
Yes, we're absolutely wired for it. So being with other humans, at sort of birth and death and times of being vulnerable is really critical. And so when you're vulnerable, you need to not only be with humans because it feels nice, but the changes in what it does for our health, our immune systems, our mental health, our physical health. I'm about to talk about loneliness with Wayside Chapel. It's immense, and it's so powerful, and we underestimate it massively, and we underutilize it nowadays even more because we don't realize that whole aspect of the human connection, which is as wondrous as the things we can do, with brand new technologies. And we need to make sure that we keep it up. It also makes us work better and feel really good.
Yes, love it. Thank you so much for coming in again. We're going to keep the conversation going in our private Facebook group, You Legal for Doctors. You're welcome to join us there.